Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, welcome to the second day of the Africa-Europe Forum. Yesterday, we had the opportunity to have a look at Africa dealing with the pandemic and the health system of Africa. We also discussed the changes and opportunities arising for Africa due to the digitalization. Today, we will talk about experiences with the German Development Corporation, hydrogen, renewable energy, and the topic education and training. Before we start, please allow me to thank our knowledge partner, the International Finance Corporation, the members of the steering committee, our sponsors and all our partners, and of course, all our speakers. Thank you for joining us in this conference. Now it's my pleasure to announce Dr. Susanne Geipert. She is the Business Scout for Development at the Hessian Chamber of Industry and Commerce. Dear Susanne, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Maleki, and good morning to everybody in the panel. I am very happy to welcome you to our session. The title is Experiences with the German Development Corporation, Networks and Know-how in Pandemic Times. I will introduce you. We have a lot of know-how and interesting networks for you to present in our panel, which are made from the German government in African and other countries. We would like to give you today an overview and also some examples from practitioners directly from the countries, as for example, Senegal, Namibia, and Kenya. We have also in our session people from Germany and Africa, and we are very international today for you. I would propose for all our participants that in front of their session, they introduce themselves in front just before the presentation. And because we have a very short time, I want to share with you the most information as possible. And as we start directly, I may introduce to you Mrs. Kraft-Schäfer, responsible for the development for the cluster of chambers of commerce in Germany of our program. And the title of the kickoff presentation, What do we offer for business in line with German Development Cooperation? Ms. Kraft-Schäfer, the floor is yours. Thank you very much and have an interesting hour with our team.
Thank you very much, Susanne, for this introduction. I would also like to thank all participants for your interest in our session today that will focus on networks, know-how and experiences of business with German Development Corporation in pandemic times. To kick off this session, I would like to present one of the main programs of German Development Corporation to bring business and development cooperation together for sustainable corporate engagement in developing and emerging markets. One of these programs is called the Business Scout for Development program, and I'm part of the coordination team, and this program is implemented by GIZ. And let me say a few words about the program's background and services. So basically, private sector is a very important partner for development cooperation in general for achieving the Global Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. For example, by private investments, vocational training, and many more. Official development aid by itself won't be able to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. So the German government offers support and funding options to ease market access and sustainable business engagement linked to development cooperation in many of these countries. Lately, this also includes additional COVID-19 response office under the COVID-19 crisis to strengthen support, but also to increase business resilience in the crisis in the health sector or other business sectors. The Business Scouts for Development program commissioned by the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, the BMZ, is one of these support office for business, and it addresses this aim by a global network of advisory services. And these advisory services basically focus on 4 areas. The first, advice on financing and cooperation office of development cooperation for business. The second, knowledge transfer, business cooperation to development cooperation to business, which means, for example, specific know-how in challenging markets or know-how on business opportunities in these markets together with development cooperation. Thirdly, joint development and implementation of projects. And fourth, networking with relevant sectors, actors in these countries. Next slide, please. On this slide, you can see the heart of the program, namely the business scouts themselves on a global range. So we have around 80 business scouts, experts around the world in 37 countries at the moment, in Germany, Europe, Africa, Asia, Latin America. And in Germany and Europe, these scouts are basically based and seconded to business or industry associations, chambers of commerce and industry, chambers of trade. And abroad, they are mainly integrated in German foreign chambers of commerce, or they're based at structures of German Development Corporation. Next slide, please. Here just wanted to present you a few aggregated output figures of the program. The numbers date back to the last year, 2020, to put the Business Scouts' work and results in numbers and to make them a little bit more, or to make it a little bit more tangible. So 300 business corporations have been developed and facilitated by Scouts. 3,300 consultations worldwide have been performed. 4,500 German business representatives have participated in events and networking of the Business Scout program. 2,000 companies using about 130 Business Scout services integrated in the German Foreign Chamber network. And you can also see here the 18 countries in Africa where, or we have listed them here, where Business Scouts are present and working, because we're talking about Africa today. Next slide, please. Before I finish my kickoff presentation, I would like to draw your attention to a digital platform called Leverage.de, which has been created by GIZ on behalf of BMZ. And this platform presents and allows search for business opportunities with development cooperation. So it shows on the slide here 2 examples from Kenya, from Albania. And lately, the Business Scouts have also been integrated in the Leverage.de platform. So you can also get in touch with the Scouts here on that platform, and you can search for business opportunities with development cooperation worldwide. And I would like to end with this and thank you for your attention and hand over to Susanne for the next contribution and presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this very interesting overview. And now we come directly to the ground. We hand over to our colleagues to Senegal and Namibia, and there is Mrs. Christina Vandel. She is Business Scout in Namibia. She will explain, give you a short overview. And Christina, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Susanne. Good morning from Windhoek to everyone out there. On behalf of my colleague Karim, who is based in Dakar, Senegal, I would like to start with a few further information on Senegal. And so all in all, as Senegal managed through this COVID-19 crisis quite well. compared to maybe some other countries. And we can go ahead one slide. There you can see that it's expected additional growth in the next few years, up to 6 and more % of economic growth. One of the biggest challenges that Senegal is facing is migration on one hand. This is on the one hand from the countryside to the cities, but also from other countries in the regions into Senegal. There is a high level of growth within the population, and also a very high there's a lot of use, and the most important thing for the next few years, and we can go to the next slide, is to bring these people into labor, as it's a very young population in Senegal, and job creation is an essential aspect for the economy in Senegal. And I'm glad that we have 2 wonderful examples of companies that are active in Senegal here with us today. And I would like to hand over to Timon Herzog from GRIPS, who will explain us today about their engagement in Senegal. Thank you, Timon.
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Vandel. Thank you as well, Mrs. Geipert and Mrs. Kraft-Schäfer, for the introduction. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Timon Herzog. I'm CEO of GRIPS Energy in Senegal. And I'm glad to very briefly share our experiences with the German Development Corporation. But first, I want to provide some further context regarding GRIPS Energy. GRIPS provides renewable energy as a service, or in other words, we offer renewable energy contracting for commercial and industrial companies, mainly in sub-Saharan Africa. We are part of EcoNext Group and committed to supporting the achievement of the UN SDGs. We have started our Africa activities 5 years ago with establishing GRIPS Energy Zambia in East Africa. Today, we are active in several African countries, currently setting up a subsidiary in Senegal, and will implement first customer projects very soon. Of course, the pandemic has definitely slowed us down and created additional challenges. So, for example, travel restrictions and setting up meetings with the local authorities. Especially in this difficult time, the support of GSZ programs such as Business Scouts, SE Jobs, and Project Development Program have been very welcome and helpful. Additionally, I can recommend the activities of the network of the German SMEs, BBMW, which is part of the German Mittelstand Alliance. One very positive example is the Task Force Senegal, in which German SMEs from all kinds of sectors cooperate and exchange to develop their activities for Senegal. So to summarize, especially in the pandemic situation, support and cooperation are crucial, especially for SMEs such as GRIPS Energy. But I think as well in normal times, importantly, required to rapidly get ahead with the sustainable agenda and to facilitate a substantial amount of cooperation between European and African SMEs. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, Christina, you take over? Okay.
Yeah, just like for now. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Herzog, for that example from your company. And we have another example with us here today, also from Senegal. And I'm happy to introduce Rebecca Slegas from Africa Green Tech. So we are interested in hearing more about your work in Senegal.
Yes, good morning to you all from Frankfurt. Thank you for inviting me to introduce Africa Green Tech here at the Africa Europe Forum. My name is Rebecca Slegas, and today as a press officer and spokesperson, I'm introducing Africa Green Tech and our work in Senegal. Africa Green Tech was founded in 2016 by Ida and Thorsten Schreiber, a German-Malian couple, and to date more than 20 villages in Mali and Niger have been electrified. And Africa Green Tech has provided electricity to around 25,000 people, empowered more than 400 small businesses, and saved a maximum of 2,000 tons of CO2. And this year, Madagascar, Chad, and Senegal will be added as further countries. And in Senegal, the first project of 50 planned villages has started. And in Diop is a village or a big region 2 hours from Dakar. So there will be the first solatana will be put into operation in the next weeks. Senegal is also selected and established as a new main hub for West Africa for or of Africa Green Tech. An academy will be used as a training center and training facility. So the focus of the academy will be on training production and electricians. So the new site will also be used as a production facility for our system, especially our solartainers and cooltainers for the entire African market. So the training will be specialized on operating, so the equipment, so that it can then be maintained in the field. And Africa Green Tech, so our works covers 11 of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And we are pleasured to be working with the GIZ in Senegal, specifically with the programs to promote business activities in Senegal. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks a lot for these two great examples from your work in Senegal. And from West Africa, we now drive down further to the south, to Namibia, where I'm based here since 2019 now. And I would like to share a few information on Namibia with you today, that I have prepared a brief slide. And so Namibia is a large country with a small population. It's a coastal country with a very stable political system, very good infrastructure, and it's very rich in resources and has also a lot of interesting niche products to offer. It's integrated in the SADC region with South Africa as the biggest neighbor, and its currency also pegged to the South African rand. Namibia is part of an economic partnership agreement with the EU, which allows is helpful for the imports to EU of Namibian products. And all in all here, one of the challenges is as well high unemployment, especially among youth. But we also brought a very interesting example from a company here from Thuringia, and I'm grateful that Dr. Gerhard Dust is here with us today and will provide us some additional information on Polycare's work here in Namibia. So I would like to hand over to you, Mr. Dust, and we have a few slides also prepared for that. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Thank you very much, Christina. Yes, we are active in Namibia since 2019. Polycare Namibia is majority owned by Namibians. So we are mainly licensors. Next slide, please. The basic idea of our company is to enable people or to empower people to build with their own strengths, with their own hands, and with material found locally on site. So we are basically a building company, and what we are doing is we're making Lego blocks out of desert sand. Next slide, please. Well, you see our blocks look like Lego blocks. They're 30 centimeters high, 60 centimeters long. They are quite light. It's only 25% of the normal weight of concrete, and you just can handle them like Legos for adults outside. They're absolutely durable, and you can reuse them anytime. Next slide, please. This is how it works. You have a Lego-like ground bar you put on the ground, then you staple the blocks, then you have a ring beam on top. You screw that together with steel rods, then you put the roof on it, and basically you can build a house in 2 days. And we have proven that quite often in Namibia. Next slide, please. This was our first house in Namibia, built by 4 Namibian workers who helped us to build it. That was during an investment conference in Windhoek. That's on the parking lot of the Safari Court Hotel. And you see these people are stapling the blocks. The base building was built in 1 day, and the building was finished on the 2nd day. Next slide, please. This young lady here was one of these 4 helpers. She's a total unskilled. She has started working as a child in a factory, and she's never built a building before. And at the end of the day, this was one of the luckiest people I've ever seen in my life, because she stood in front of the house she had built. And the nice story here is, this was the model house. We donated it later to the government of Namibia, and the government gave it to a poor family in one of the informal settlements. So the house had to be dismantled, and these 4 workers did that on their own, put it brick by brick to the place in the informal settlement, and she was the leader of the pack to rebuild the house. So the house is now standing in Ochimuzhe, and a family is living inside. And she is the kind of people we want to have as the leaders of small, medium enterprises. So we want to empower people all over Africa to be enabled to form their own companies. Next slide, please. That's the last one. These are the types of houses we are building in Namibia. Price of a 60 square 2-bedroom house will be around $20,000 or is around $20,000. So it is in the range of affordable living. And we are in the rollout phase in other countries in Africa. Also interested to go to Senegal, to Ghana. We are also discussing with GIZ to set up a green building academy in Africa to help people build these types of buildings, put solar power on it, sustainable water supply, and so forth. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Christina. Do you want to add something, or do we go to the next small session? Christina, I think.
No, I think.
Okay.
We
could come back from Senegal and Namibia. Thank you very much for this very interesting inside view of your work and your how you function in these countries. We come to our next session. An overview of the strategic partnership technology in Africa to private sector. I'm very pleased to hand over to my colleague Maren Molde, and Maren, the floor is yours.
Perfect. Thank you, Susanne. Good morning, everyone from Frankfurt. My name is, as already mentioned, Maren Molde, and I'm a project manager at the Strategic Partnership Technology in Africa, or SPTA in short. Next slide, please. The Strategic Partnership Technology in Africa is a network of German development cooperation and over 220 European companies. Companies like from small companies to large corporates. And actually Polycare, who you just heard the presentation, is also a partner of our network. The network was launched in 2015 by the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, short BMZ, and has been coordinated by GIZ. Although we are not officially part of the Business Scouts program, we work very closely with them, and that's why we are very glad to be here today as well. The aim of the network is to promote transformative or future-oriented technologies in Africa through public-private cooperation projects. Because we believe that it's mostly businesses that develop technologies, and that we do need those innovative technologies to solve some of the most urgent development challenges in African countries. This can be climate change, food insecurity, fragile healthcare systems, and so forth. This is why we're always looking for companies with innovative ideas and technologies in the fields of agriculture, education, energy, governance, green technologies, health, and mobility. So you can see the branches that we're active in are very broad. Next slide, please. So what can we offer to companies as a network? So firstly, we can help to identify business opportunities in African markets. We can, in certain conditions, test the feasibility of new technologies on the ground. We can help you to find cooperation partners and, wherever possible, funding sources. And of course, as a network, we also connect you and exchange you with other companies from a network, as well as with relevant stakeholders from development cooperation. And this may be representatives of BMZ, but also GIZ colleagues in the various countries, so you can tap into the local networks and expertise that GIZ has already. We do all of this, as mentioned already, with the aim of developing and implementing joint cooperation projects that have tangible development benefits. Of course, as always, there are some limitations. We are not an investor. This is why we usually expect an own contribution by the company. And we unfortunately do not support core businesses, but we are rather looking for new ideas that go beyond the everyday business. So during the pandemic, or the COVID-19 pandemic has once again really demonstrated the benefit of such a network, because despite the uncertain economic outlooks and difficult circumstances for everyone, many of our partner companies have approached us with ideas and solutions to address the consequences of the health crisis in our partner countries. And today I would like to present just two examples on how we collaborated with the private sector during the pandemic, which will also illustrate a bit better on how we work as the SBTA. So next slide, please. South Africa was on the African continent among the countries the hardest hit by the pandemic. And this is why Volkswagen South Africa decided to help the South African government in coping with the crisis, and decided to transform an empty production hall in Port Elizabeth into a field hospital for COVID-19 patients. Volkswagen South Africa has been a long-term partner of the SBTA, and this field hospital can currently accommodate up to 1,450 patients. And if there's a need, the capacity can be increased up to 3,300 beds. And the idea for this project emerged within the SBTA network, but was then handed over to the Develop PPP program, which some of you may be familiar with. It's the big public-private partnership program of BMZ, and it's now been implemented and funded through this program. And then, of course, Volkswagen and also the local government in South Africa are providing some funds as well. The project also included the procurement of protective equipment for hospitals and test centers in the region. Next slide, please. So the second example today is from Kenya, where the COVID-19 pandemic has demonstrated that without access to internet, large part of the population are actually excluded from relevant information on COVID-19, on other health issues, but also from income generating opportunities. And this is a problem that the Kenyan company BRIC, which is one of Africa's largest public Wi-Fi providers, wants to tackle. And again, with support of the Develop PPP program, BRIC plans to connect up to 800,000 people in the Matar Valley informal settlement in Nairobi to the internet. And with this internet connection, the people can now firstly access free information on COVID-19 and preventative measures, as well as other health or educational topics. This project was initiated as part of the cooperation between the BRIC and SPTA to set up a free knowledge platform called WeConnect. So the idea of this platform is to provide general knowledge, especially on topics such as digital literacy, life skills, and health, and to also enable the community to upload their own learning materials and their own content. The idea is that by completing interactive learning formats, the users can then gain access to the internet for free for a certain amount of time through the BRIC network. The platform is currently being set up by SPDA through the NGOs Learning Alliance and Tunapale Institute, and we hope that this will be done by the end of the year. Next slide, please. So those were just two examples on how we work with private companies, especially also during the pandemic, to not only address the health issues or health consequences of this crisis, but also the broader socioeconomic consequences that many countries face at the moment. So if you have an idea for joint cooperation project, or you're interested in joining our network, please feel free to contact us and we can discuss your ideas anytime. Thank you. And I hand back over to Susanne.
Yes, thank you very much, Maren, for this very interesting overview over your work. We come now to our last part of our presentation, and I hand over to our colleagues in Kenya for practical experiences from East Africa under the cooperation with the Business Scout for Development program and the cooperation with BDI. So Moses, can you hear us? And the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I hear you very well. Greetings from Nairobi, Kenya. My name is Moses from the program Business Scouts for Development, the Industrialization Hub. Over the last 3 years, we were running a pilot program under different names, the Creative Perspectives Business for Development East Africa, where we interacted with over 74 local companies across the 6 countries of East Africa. We supported the companies with management and technical capacity building, including business linkages. One such company is LinePlus, which is actually brings together a number of companies owned and run by Meringetu. Additionally, Meringetu takes on more responsibility, acting as director for several boards of business membership organizations, including the East African Business Council. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to introduce to you Meringetu from LinePlus Group Kenya.
Thank you, Moses. As Moses has said, my name is Meringetu, currently the Managing Director for LinePlus Group. LinePlus Group is a synergy of 3 entities. Our first company is Lineart Solution, and we major in label printing, flexo labels. The second entity is Plast Packaging, where we manufacture plastic bottles and plastic containers. And the third entity is called Aroma Care, where we manufacture cosmetics, cleaning, and sanitation agents. The companies, right now, we have a total workforce of about 300 people, and the companies are fully owned and managed by me and my husband. I've been one of the beneficiaries of the 2 projects that Moses has talked about, the Creating Perspective. I went through the Creating Perspective project for a period of 3 years. I was exposed into several areas that have helped me, and I'll give you my journey on how it is I've been able to benefit from that project. One of the areas that they did was training for me and my staff. They were able to sit with my company, analyze our gaps in systems. We have installed SAP, and they were able to help us to develop and optimize how we are using SAP. They've also been able to help us in preparation for ISO. They have trained my staff in good manufacturing practice to a level that last year we were given an award by the Kenya Association of Manufacturers as company that is practicing good manufacturing practices. We've also been exposed myself into different trade fairs that I've visited in Europe, in Germany, and in Belgium. I've also been exposed into travel to visit different companies that are doing similar businesses like I'm doing. I've traveled to companies like Heidelberg, KBA that are manufacturing machineries for printing, and I've been able to create good relationship with them to a level of buying their machinery. I've also been exposed into other people who are doing businesses. This mainly is for helping me to conceptualize and develop my business idea so that I'm able to understand into what level that I want to take my businesses. In Africa, part of the challenges that we face is that having not seen more developed production manufacturing entities, sometimes our thinking are limited, and these exposures have has really helped me as a director, and also has helped my team to conceptualize and practice good manufacturing product. One of the results that have come out in my exposure with the creating perspective was a partnership that I was able to meet a chemical company in Germany, and we were able to develop a partnership, and we have since been able to sign off an agreement that I'm their local distributor, not just for Kenya, but for East Africa. And we have also been able to sign off that I am able to manufacture their products under license. How this helped was because we were already on the ground, and it was just a plug-in a bit of their technology in terms of machinery, so that we're able to adapt to manufacture locally their products to the standards, the global standard required. This has helped because if you look into the trade agreements that have been done in Kenya now, we have COMESA, we have East Africa, we have the Free Africa Continental Trade, where we have tax initiative, we are manufacturing locally. So the partnership of local manufacturing with the German partner will help us to be able to access the trade agreements that have been put in place. It's also a good way that we are going to be able to create jobs for our local people. And this is because of the benefits that we have been able to get from a creating perspective. We are continuing now with the Business for Scouts development, and we have a few projects that are going on. And because of the investment that we have done, the Business for Scouts are helping me in looking for finances so that we are able to grow our businesses into the next level. We need to invest in newer technology in terms of machinery so that we are able to access and take advantage of the market. They've been able to introduce me to development financials and some of the challenges that I would say that I've faced myself, not just me, but any other medium growing organization in Africa faces, is a few requirements. Some of them I would speak like the minimum requirement of a ticket that a finance developer, a development financial is able to give. So those are some of the challenges that the Business for Scout is helping me to go through. There are several other requirements which comes in the due diligence. You have to do finance modeling. You have to do environment and sustainability reports. And in the aspect that there are not many experts in Kenya that are doing that, these become challenges. And program like the one I'm going through, Business for Scouts, they are able to help. And I also believe that there's much more that they can be able to help my partnership with the company that I'm working with, and also in the process to host a delegation. Last year we hosted, in 2019 we hosted a delegation that came from Germany that was organized by the Ministry of Industrialization, German Chambers and Industry of Commerce, Hanover. They organized a delegation that came to visit Kenya, and they were accompanied by the German Minister for Industrialization. And out of that visit, I was able to create good linkage with the team, and we have been able to develop new sources of supply of raw material. As Moses has also said, I actively am sitting in several boards for the BMOs, the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, the Kenya Private Sector, and also East Africa Business Council. And what we are doing with the BMOs is to try to lobby for the government so that we are able to create a good environment for manufacturing, because the governments in Africa, just not East Africa, we are trying to promote local manufacturing. So we are lobbying with the government so that we are able to create a good work environment for manufacturers, so that investors from Europe, from Germany, they can be able to come and find a friendly environment for manufacturing. Advantages I've said in local manufacturing is that we access wider markets across the East Africa, depending on the treaties that have been put in together. The other area is with the BMOs, you find a common platform where you get all the businesses, and when you're doing your feasibility studies, it's easy to get a company or an entity that you can be able to plug in terms of partnership. Local partnership would come in two ways, as I have said, that I have with my German partner in distribution of their products and also in locally manufacturing their brands. So BMOs, business organizations are platforms that we're able to plug in and get all these companies at the same time. There are several challenges that I've said that we would face when especially trying to look for a partner. It is important to understand that how do you develop this partnership? Part of the challenges that I would share that I went through when I was developing my partnership with the German company is understanding the size of the market. Understanding the size of the market, these are practices that most companies in Africa will not do, but it's a requirement so that you're able to understand in terms of what capacity are you going to invest in for your infrastructures. And these are some of the areas that this project has been able to help me. So I would say that you're welcome to come to Kenya. I have wide networks. We can be able to help you come invest and create relationship in Kenya. I don't know, Moses, whether there's something else that you want me to add on that relationship.
Okay, thank you very much, Mary, for this interesting insight from Kenya. I would like to ask to all participants who are listening to us, if you have questions to our participants, we have the chance to answer to you. So if you have questions, please send them to us. We will put that in our panel and talk to you. We would be very pleased. But meanwhile, waiting for your questions, perhaps may I ask some of the participants, Mary, perhaps can you close your microphone? Perhaps may I ask to the other participants if you have something to add, and then we can have a small round of discussion with you, and then we go to the plenum. Christina, do you wanted to add something for the local firms, I think?
Yeah, well, like as for Namibia, for example, we had that example now by a German company who has set up the factory here now. I would also like to highlight the fact that the Business Scouts for Development are also offering a lot of tools and programs and capacity building for local companies in the countries we are working in. And that's, as Diana Kraft-Schäfer said at the beginning, 18 countries in Africa. So these are programs that are related to trade fair, preparation and participation at trade fairs. It's a support in terms of export readiness for local companies, or also in terms of certification. There are offers in the field of compliance. There are exchange formats and trainings also on the topic of business and human rights. So it's a set of different tools that are focusing to different target groups. We're also trying to support female entrepreneurs with various programs. There are some examples, for example, from Côte d'Ivoire. But yeah, we would like to encourage you to get in touch with us whenever there's something you would like discuss, or if you're interested in joining one of the programs that are offered. Currently mostly virtual, but soon hopefully again also in person.
Okay, thank you very much, Christina, for this additional information. This is quite interesting to see that we are not working only on the international floor, but also we can create contact with national entrepreneurs, which can be very helpful for international firms. So perhaps may I ask to our entrepreneurs, Mrs. Slegers, Mr. Herzog, Mr. Dust, perhaps you have some additional information for other entrepreneurs who are here with us. What was the advantage to the cooperation with the German Development Corporation, and perhaps what would you advise to others who want to engage in Africa? The floor is yours. Who want to start?
Yeah, if I may.
Yes, please, Mr. Dutt.
All the programs offered by GIZ and DEG and KfW are really amazing, but you need a scout. You need a scout to find it, especially when you are a small company. And helpfully, there are some, and there are some awesome ones really helping us. So I'm glad with all the help we got. There's one thing I want to just put on the table. Because we are believing that the value change of everything we are doing in Africa should remain in Africa. So we are not a German company setting up a factory in Africa. We are a German company helping people to set up a factory, and that is then owned by the Africans. So that's the case in Namibia. That will be the case in South Africa and in other countries as well. One of the biggest problems for the Africans are to get it financed. So there is enough money in the world, but people are reluctant to invest in Africa. And if you, in our example, we are a small startup, if you so will, and to finance a project in Africa via Germany, it's nearly impossible for a startup. If you're a big company like Siemens or other Volkswagen, it wouldn't be a problem to set up something and to get the finance for an African project. But for a small company, bankers, even the bankers from DEG and KfW are like sitting with their piggyback. And tell you, prove your concept, and there is no risk money for Africa. I think this is something we have to rethink in Germany, to have some risk money for Africa, to bring things to promote things quicker. Even if we fail sometimes, the results will be better overall because we are quicker. So that's my remark for today.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Dust. So normally it's ladies first, but Mr. Herzog is also talking to us. We have time to hear everybody of you. Mr. Herzog, please, and sorry, Ms. Slegers.
No, ladies first. If Mrs. Slegers wants to start, please, Mrs. Slegers.
No, everything is cool. No, just start. We have time.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to quickly respond to your question, Mrs. Geipert, so to share some of our experiences. So what I can highly recommend is to participate in one of the delegation journeys. That was extremely helpful for us. There was in December, there was a journey organized by, in cooperation of the Bundesverband of the Mittelstand, the BBMW, and the GSZ program SE Jobs, the Special Initiative Jobs. and they did a really great job to do a program for 1 week, very comprehensive, to meet really good contacts from the Senegalese official side, but as well interesting industry associations, and they as well helped to organize individual meetings. So that is really an example where if a German SME wants to start in a country like Senegal and has not yet the best level of contacts, I can highly recommend to participate in such a journey. And beside that, I as well, especially for our sector, can recommend the project development program, which is an initiative financed by the BMWI, which is especially focused on renewable energies, where they already look in the market what kind of customers could there be for German European companies. That is a very helpful initiative too. And I think there are many more. As Mr. Dust said, it's quite complex. And it's good to have scouts that help, especially SMEs that cannot afford employees just focusing on this topic. But as well, if you need a scout, I can as well recommend the AWE, which is an agency in Germany that helps companies to find the right program from the government side. No? The AWE, the Agentur für Wirtschaft und Entwicklung, where they really have employees that help to screen what is there in terms of public programs and what can be helpful for the individual company. So much to answer your question as some tips for German companies.
Thank you very much for this additional information. Mrs. Stegas, please, now the floor is yours. Perhaps you have some additional advice also for our listeners.
Yes, thank you so much. So we just can talk about our experience with the GIZ in Senegal. So the GIZ helps us as Africa Green Tech to network and build and feel real estate or productions halls and fundings, and also tenders like specialized topics such as rural financing, local ministries. And the GIZ Business Scout in Senegal, it's Karim Azaziz, links German companies to create synergies. And the network and creating networks is, I think, very beneficial. And gathering skills workers or training them ourselves, which we also plan to do in Senegal. And the GIZ also supports us in this order to build up the training structures. And we really appreciate the work and also the help that GIZ gives us to many companies, including us as Africa Green Tech in Senegal. So yeah, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you very much for this inside view also. So I'm asking again to my colleague, are there some questions from your side? We still have time, but if perhaps today you have no direct questions to us, you can contact us always later. I will tell you later where we find our contact data. I see one hand of Mrs. Kraft-Schäfer. Diana, you want to add something, please?
Yes, I also would like to add another question, mainly to our corporate participants here, Mr. Dust, Mr. Herzog, Mrs. Legas, and Mary. So I would like to know if you have any learnings from the COVID-19 crisis for doing business in Africa so far already, or do you see any learnings coming up, because the crisis, of course, is still there? That would be an interesting, or I would be interested in estimations from your side also regarding how should we as Business Scout for Development Program, GIZ, and our commissioning ministry, BMZ, should react on that. Thank you.
Allow me, maybe I would share my experience. I would say with the pandemic COVID-19, I think one of the things that has come out very clear is that businesses need to change a few things in their business model, how we approach the market, and also how it is that we are sourcing. And in Africa, in Kenya in particular, I think it has been a big lesson that we need to source locally, and this is why we are pushing on local manufacturing. It's an opportunity for investors from Europe because we have companies that, as I said earlier, you simply just need to adapt in small technology in terms of machinery, and we are able to source locally. So local manufacturing is being pushed, and this has been proved by COVID-19 that we need to invest and source locally. However, programs like Business for Scout, I think what you can do a lot to help is from a farm intervention. You need to do more farm intervention so that you're able to give specific solution to specific companies, because different sectors, different entities are facing different challenges. They could be small, but they could be big barriers for them. So specific intervention into companies would be helpful, that you're able to get specific results for different entities. Thank you.
Yes, okay, thank you very much. Is there somebody else who want to answer? Mr. Herzog, please.
Yes, maybe very shortly. So definitely it has a big impact. I mean, alone the travel restrictions and so on. And then in many countries, there are limitations as well if you're there for personal meetings with public organizations. So what we saw is a big shift, and that's a positive development towards digitalization. So for meetings where in the past I never would have expected that an online meeting via Zoom would be possible, suddenly that is possible. For example, in Ghana, we have a local joint venture with a local developer for a larger project where we sell electricity to ECG, the public utility company of Ghana. And with them, we suddenly had Zoom meetings where normally we would have to fly to Accra. And yeah, that is, of course, a very positive development in terms of easier cooperation on one hand, and of course, in terms of CO2 savings for the flights. And that is something where, I mean, also sometimes I have the feeling that in Accra, the digital infrastructure and the local internet is better than in Berlin sometimes. Quite often it is a problem, the digital infrastructure, the access to Zoom, the bandwidth available and so on. And I think that would be something that in general could be helpful, to deliver support to our African partners, that they have easier access, that they get maybe training on how to use this very important communication channels. I think that could be an additional focus area.
Okay, thank you very much. Perhaps you allow me that we come slowly to an end. I just want to announce you, if you have now more answers than questions, it is very good. If you have more questions than answers, you can always contact us. If you are searching the right person, you can Google on the ministry website of BMZ, the Business Scouts for Development, and you find always the most actual version of all our contact data. So you find in nearly all the chambers of commerce in Germany a contact where a local German scout can help you to answer questions and to find the right networks or promotion programs, and then we can help you to orient where our colleagues in the right programs or also in the right countries. Also, you find a very interesting platform. As some of you know, I have my office in the Hessian Chamber of Commerce in Gießen-Friedberg, and on this website there is a competence center for Africa where we collect all relevant information on webinars or on other things happening around Africa. There is a link on the competence center, the Chamber of Commerce Gießen-Friedberg, and you will find a lot of interesting information. So perhaps, Diana, you want to add something?
Before we close, Susanna, I would like to thank again the Africa Europe Forum for giving us the opportunity here to perform the session, to be included in the forum, and on behalf of our Business Scout program, GIZ and BMZ. And yeah, we wish you a successful day, the second day of the Africa Europe Week, and thank you everyone also from my side for your participation and contributions here today. That's
Yes,
all I wanted to say before we close.
Yes. No, I wanted also to thank all the participants for their interesting inside view from Africa and all the preparation time you put together with us. So I think from my side, I was in the steering committee for the preparation. A lot of thanks to the Maleki team, especially to Mrs. Böhm, who has always a lot of patience with us. I think we see that we are pulling all in the same direction. And if some of you who listened now to our panel heard us, you please contact us. And I hand over to Mr. Liebig and the next session. The next big thing between Germany and Africa, the hydrogen theme. And thanks a lot, and don't hesitate to contact all of us. Thank you very much. We wish you an interesting day today. Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and a warm welcome from Hamburg. I'm glad to host you for the next panel that is going to discuss hydrogen. The exact title is "The Next Big Thing Between Germany and Africa, Hydrogen?" And I think it goes without saying, everybody has heard about the new hype that hydrogen has been building up when it comes to European and African business relations and investment opportunities. Is hydrogen going to be the next big thing? Flensburg University has issued a study recently that suggests that hydrogen investments in Africa might be one of two main drivers of economic growth post-corona on the continent. And that is mainly because of ambitious climate change targets or climate protection targets that Europe has set. You've all heard of the Green Deal and of the recently further strengthened objectives and targets that the German government has set. And we all know that about 2/3 of German energy needs are currently imported from abroad. Today, that is mainly the case in form of lignite, oil, natural gas, and other fossil sources. Now, if we want to make these green, we need to find alternative options for import of energy. And I think the idea is to use green hydrogen and some of the hydrogen-based green products to manage. Critics of this development say transport might still be an issue, still a long distance, still very energy consuming. People say we shouldn't use water for generation of hydrogen since it's a rare resource in many places of Africa. And people also say that energy should be used in Africa before it's going to be exported, since there's still a huge gap to be filled on the continent, with hundreds of millions of people not connected to the grid at all. So we are going to discuss all of this, and I'm very glad to have a very distinguished and experienced panel. We are going to start not to talk about Africa, but with our partners in Africa. And I'm very honored and happy that we can welcome His Excellency, the Minister of Economic Affairs of the Republic of Mauritania, Mr. Ousmane Khan. He joins us from Paris today, where he's supposed to assist his head of state at the French today. And without further delay, let me pass the floor, or maybe the screen, to our friend Minister Khan to give an African perspective and to tell us why hydrogen is of importance to the government of Mauritania. Minister, the floor is yours.
Hello, good morning. Good morning to all of you. I wanted my colleague, Minister of Energy, to be the one talking today, but unfortunately, he also is stuck in Dakar regarding big energy projects, but not renewable one, a gas project in Senegal with British Petroleum. I'm sorry to say that today. So I will try to give our views in Mauritania, starting with some obvious matters you know better than me, and then I will talk about my own country and what we want to do and what we are doing regarding hydrogen. As you know, dear friends, renewable, clean, efficient, and non-toxic hydrogen has all the attributes to be the perfect form of sustainable energy, as all we know, especially if you are talking about green hydrogen. The current hydrogen market is estimated at around 120 million tons per year. You know that better than I do, mainly for industrial applications, petroleum refining, production of ammonia and methanol. For example, 2% of energy market demand. The development of new applications, particularly in the field of mobility and industry, could increase this market share. In the event of a significant drop in production and transport costs, hydrogen could be even cover 18% of final energy needs in 2050, according to the Hydrogen Council. We are on the eve of the development of global low-carbon hydrogen market, as reflected in the large number of research development initiatives and projects that have been undertaken in recent years. As all we know, the renewable energy is a likely element in green hydrogen production, and economic scale is needed to bring the energy cost down. Africa is one of the regions that has a very important renewable resources, which allow it to play a very important role in the energy transition, especially to unlock hydrogen production. As you are aware, Mauritania has one of the best winds and solar potential in the continent. Recent estimations indicates technical potential of 4.2 gigawatt at 39.2% load factor in all areas. Commercial potential of 457 gigawatt at 42.4 load factor, considering all constraints on the environment, transport, topography, proximity, etc. These numbers could indicate that the country can play a very important role in producing renewable energy at a very large scale to unlock production of green hydrogen to be exported to international markets, especially Europe and America. The geographical position of our country and its low populated area boost its chance in the competition toward high scale and low cost hydrogen production. You may know that we are some 4.5 million people in a 1 million square kilometers country. So most of the regions are really uninhabited, not habitated at all, and so then available for investment on wind and solar. You have also a long coast of 700 kilometers with 3 international ports. Some of them can be upgraded very, very easily. So we are currently exporting iron ore from these ports, and we could easily export many other commodities from the same ports at their current level, or if need be, when they will be upgraded. The government of Mauritania has already launched a study with the World Bank support to elaborate a hydrogen development roadmap for the following objectives: contribute to the decarbonization of the Mauritanian energy sector while improving access to energy, support Mauritania's mining sector by stimulating demand, material imports for renewable energy and hydrogen technology, and contributing to the decarbonization, for example, heavy trucking. And also we could have green steel produced in Mauritania, as the Australians are projecting to do. And this is one of the main targets we have in thinking of hydrogen, because we have a lot of iron ore, but most of them are exported either to China or to Germany. We could develop steel industry, green steel energy in Mauritania using this hydrogen potential. Help decarbonize other important economic sectors such as transport, trucks, shipping, and energy-intensive industries such as fishing for the fish processing. You may know that Mauritania is a big fish producer, but once again, exported mostly as a raw product to Asia and to Europe. There is a big potential of developing an industry around the fishing sector in Mauritania using this new energy. We would like also to create a potential of new source of income by exporting low carbon hydrogen and or products using low carbon hydrogen as feedstock, which could be sold at high price due to their reduced carbon content, which may be of interest to a number of importing countries as part of their decarbonization strategies. We would like also to use the water which is produced as a byproduct in the hydrogen producing process, because we have huge desert, and these areas of the country needs water, and we count on the hydrogen production process and use the byproduct, which is water, to satisfy the needs of the very few people living in these areas. We would like also to stimulate a new industrial sector in manufacturing locally some of the equipments that will be required for this new sector. And of course, create jobs and develop skills. The third study will assess existing policy, legislation, and regulations, identify gaps regarding the development of a competitive, sustainable, and secure hydrogen market in Mauritania. Like, for example, safety regulations, lack of standards, etc. The investment initiatives from Europe and Germany, particularly, are very welcome in this new field, which Germany companies have a great know-how. Thank you, my friends.
Thank you, Minister Khan, for giving that overview. I think what we've learned is that Mauritania is about to develop a hydrogen strategy. It's highly interested to generate green hydrogen, both for local use and for export to Europe and to Germany. Now, the German end is something that I think we have found the best speaker to cover that angle. I'd like to invite him on the floor next, Staatssekretär Thomas Bareis, the German Deputy Minister of Economic Affairs and Energy. And I believe we can say he's been the mastermind behind the development of a German hydrogen strategy. So, Thomas Bareis, herzlich willkommen. Greetings to Berlin. May I invite you to say a few words around what the German strategy, the German government strategy on hydrogen is, and what role you would expect Africa to take in that strategy?
Herzlichen Dank, my dear friend Stefan, dear Minister, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. Good to see you. Good to see friends. I think this issue is very, very important. I think there's a lot of space to have good cooperation. So therefore, thanks a lot for this invitation. Before I go into the details of the strategy, let me first shortly explain why we have hydrogen strategy. Germany and the EU have set ambitious climate targets. Germany aims to be carbon neutral by progressing further. We have reached a share of more than 50% of renewable energy in electricity demand this year and aim to increase this share to 65% by 2030. Meanwhile, we are working on the phase-out of nuclear and coal-based energy. The installation and integration of renewable energy capacities, therefore, remains a strategic priority. While we progress in the electricity sector, we also want to decarbonize the other sectors like industry and transport. For that, we also focus on hydrogen as an energy carrier. As German companies are market leaders in hydrogen technologies, we want to ensure that Germany remains a global technology leader in this field. We have therefore launched our national hydrogen strategy in June this year, making hydrogen a competitive alternative of this strategy. The strategy supports the development of markets for the production and use of hydrogen. In order to do so, the strategy rests on two pillars. The first pillar is the development of a home market for green hydrogen. We therefore want to increase the installation capacity for the production of green hydrogen to 5 gigawatt by 2030. In addition, we will implement programs to incentivize the use of green hydrogen in Germany via subsidy programs and the expansion of infrastructure. For Germany, we foresee an annual demand of 90 to 110 terawatt hours of hydrogen by 2030. Only a small share of the demand will be produced domestically. Germany will therefore remain an energy importer, but in the future, we want energy imports to be carbon neutral. The strategy therefore includes international cooperation and imports of green hydrogen. The goal of this international cooperation is to support the establishment of hydrogen value chains and large-scale production facilities in countries where green hydrogen can be produced in an efficient and cost-effective way and where import economically viable. For this international cooperation, 2 billion euros we want to spend. We are currently exploring potential international partners for H2 projects. We are interested to assess with you how we could jointly support green hydrogen projects in our countries. We are looking for projects of industrial scale or in the form of pilot projects, including research and development cooperation. African countries have an outstanding potential to produce renewable energy and as a result also green hydrogen. And we are already cooperating closely with several countries within the framework of our bilateral energy partnerships and dialogues. For instance, Morocco, Tunisia, Algeria, or South Africa. But we have also started the dialogue with several other countries. In general, however, the strategy does not have a clear regional or country-specific focus. It will be up to the industry to identify the most promising investment destinations and engage in setting up projects that will then be supported by our government. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Thomas Bareis, for that insightful view on German government perspective. Now we've heard our friends and partners from Africa are highly interested to develop a new industry with us. The German government even supports it very specifically with new instruments, new support mechanisms, programs, etc. Now, the missing link, obviously, is the investor from private sector. So let me start asking Dr. Carsten Bührer to come in. Dr. Bührer is the head of technology of PNE, a publicly listed renewable energy developer from Germany, and I know he's working on green hydrogen projects in Africa. So what do you need on top of what has just been mentioned, the strong political will both in Africa and Germany? What do you need for green hydrogen projects to become successful in Africa?
Thank you very much for being part of this event. PNE as a project developer brings technology and development to countries with renewable energies, and we're also bringing investors in, and this is the crucial part. Investors need safety for investments. So from our point of view, in the story of hydrogen, which is not more or less than exchanging one primary energy carrier, fossil fuels, against renewable energy, which is a really major effort for the whole of society, we need security in investments, and this is majorly driven by off-takers. So we need the right framework for those off-takers to use carbon-free, low-carbon hydrogen, to be able to initiate investments, to structure projects in countries in Africa or all over the world. And this is the major element we need. There is an element in the German policy called H2 Global, which can be part of the story. We are a medium-sized company, so we are not the big player, looking at gigawatt scale projects in one go. So we need instruments feasible to cater for project sizes we can handle. And I think that this also produces low-cost projects in the future, because there are more than one developers like us in the world, and this keeps up competition. While if looking only for very, very big projects in one go, this makes it difficult to cater for all these different project developers.
Thank you. Investing in renewable energy in Africa is not really new. The new piece is that we apply some additional technology in transforming green electricity into green hydrogen. Nina Boyer is a partner in Herbert Smith Freehill's law firm, and she joins us from Paris today. I know she's very experienced as a lawyer supporting infrastructure development and transactions in Africa. So is there anything we can learn from energy transactions, infrastructure transactions, that we should apply to hydrogen projects? Do you see anything that either of the partners need to do in addition so that we can speed up, accelerate the success story of hydrogen in Africa?
Thank you very much, Stefan. And I just wanted to also extend my thanks to the Maleki Corporate Group for allowing me to once again be part of the Africa-European Forum. Before I address your questions, Stefan, just a quick one to the audience. So I'm an English and French qualified lawyer. I've been working on projects in Africa for the past 20 years. Just to give you an idea of the scale of the work that the law firm does, over the last 12 months, which is obviously largely overshadowed by COVID, we advised on 950 matters across the whole of Africa. So as a firm, we have a very strong commitment to Africa and also in the necessary inclusive growth and resilient growth for the future. You asked about two questions, and let me consider those in turn. One around what can we learn from project and infrastructure development and try and avoid some of those pitfalls when it comes to exploring this really exciting opportunity, which is hydrogen. The second is what more can Germany be doing? And I'll try and have a go at that one, being the outsider on this call, but how can Germany really unlock that potential in Africa? In terms of lessons learned, so Carsten talked about security of investment. The big four accountancy firms, they run a survey every year on investing in Africa. And one of the key points that comes out every time is regulatory uncertainty. I think one of the things Germany has done very well is had a very aggressive program about international investment, putting in place bilateral investment treaties, which means that when investors go into a country, they know that they can have a neutral forum and certain investment protections. But ultimately, there needs to be a stable, reliable, and predictable local regime. And it was great to hear Minister Kane talking about the strategy that they are building for hydrogen. It is having that clarity, visibility, and stability in our systems that is of particular importance. We can't just look at countries, we have to look at projects. Carsten as well was talking about, well, who is the off-taker? How can we improve the financial dynamics of these projects? We have seen, for example, in the infrastructure space, the number of projects that clients come to me with, and then the number that actually reach the final goalposts. It's very difficult for bidders to spot which are the right projects. And I think in that respect, the work that's being done by Germany on the H2 Atlas project, trying to help international investors who look at a continent of 54 jurisdictions with different legal systems, different imperatives, and trying to map where are the real opportunities so that we don't waste time and channel the money for the right projects. A proper risk allocation so that we can secure funding will be an important element. When you look at GDP figures for Africa over 2020 and effectively sort of retracted by 2%, Africa is going to come out of this crisis without the ability to make the huge fiscal stimulus measures and investments that other countries are doing to prop up their economies. So we need to be bringing private investment along. Maybe I should pause there and I can come back to a question on what else Germany can be doing to further bolster the Africa opportunities separately.
Sure, great. Thanks, Nina. I believe indeed for the second round, we are keen to learn from your experience what might be the missing pieces so that we can make this a joint success story. Andreas Wenzel is the CEO of the German-Moroccan Chamber of Commerce. He's calling us from Casablanca this morning. And as we heard from Staatssecretary Barrais, Morocco is one of the focus partner countries so far, at least in terms of bilateral cooperation with a focus on hydrogen. So we are keen to hear what is going to happen in Morocco, what can Germany do, and maybe you can also say a few words as to how the critical aspects of hydrogen projects are perceived. A lot of people are talking about difficulties to use water, are talking about the problem of exporting energy while there's still a lack of electricity in various African countries. So how do our friends in Morocco see this? And when can we join you for the first party to introduce the first successful hydrogen project in Casablanca?
Yeah, thank you very much, Stefan Liebing. And also from my side, thank you very much to the Maleki Corporate Group for organizing this great conference and inviting me to speak. Indeed, I mean, we are representing here German business in Morocco as being supported by the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Energy through the German Chamber network. And sorry, there's currently a bit of a noise out here. I hope it will stop. Why is Morocco an interesting case for German business and also for German politics to consider in terms of climate change, in terms of green hydrogen? The first point is already on a global perspective, on a perspective of the political leadership of this country. If you look at the Climate Change Performance Index, Morocco ranks 7 globally in terms of its political will to address climate change and to implement political reforms respectively. I think, and speaking about political support that you need to drive project, I think this is already a big supporting mechanism that Morocco does indeed offer. The second point is that the framework for cooperation in hydrogen is excellent in Morocco. First of all, Morocco over the years embarked on an efficient mechanism to increase the production of renewable energies. As elaborated by Thomas Barreis for Germany, Morocco is also considering to be at 55% of renewable energy production for the energy demand of the country by 2030. Speaking about the availability of water resources, Morocco is currently addressing the issue of water management, both in terms of planning new desalination projects, but also with increasing the capacity to actually store water by building new dams. And if you look, thirdly, what I would suggest also from a German perspective is very important is that we have a strong German-Moroccan partnership. First of all, Thomas Barreis, he already mentioned the bilateral energy partnership as being supported by the ministry. So currently, together with the colleagues from the GIZ, we are advising and working together with the Moroccan government to publish the white paper on the green hydrogen strategy of Morocco. And secondly, there is a big cooperation going on between the German Ministry of Development Cooperation, BMZ, and Moroccan stakeholder to actually implement two things. First of all, a research and development partnership involving Fraunhofer Institute and the Moroccan Institute for Renewable Energies, IRESEN. And secondly, investing into the development of a first pilot plant to actually produce green hydrogen on industrial scale. And yeah, Stefan Liebing, you're right. A lot will depend on how will we actually be able to also tackle the challenges that still exist in terms of transport. Morocco on the other side, and I think this is also very important for Germany to know, is that Morocco is not only interested to produce energy in the form of green hydrogen to export it to Europe and to Germany, but also to use it in downstream activities in Moroccan industry, first and foremost in the fertilizer industry, but also in other industries. And also this poses huge opportunities for German business to engage in partnerships to develop an industrialization or to continue to develop an industrialization strategy based on green hydrogen. And last but not least, very glad to hear from Minister Kane about Mauritania, the neighboring country to the south, developing its hydrogen strategy, because I think Morocco could play a pivotal role in providing a platform and a bridge of exchange between European partners and African partners to make this partnership not only a German-Moroccan partnership, but really a European-African partnership. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andreas Wenzel. And let me conclude the first round by asking Professor Bertram Lohmüller, who is joining us from Steinbeis University, Berlin. He's a professor for innovation management, and I'm keen to learn about your work and especially about what you think are going to be the main opportunities and the main niche areas that German Mittelstand could cover. We are obviously technology leaders in many sectors, but as far as renewable energy investment in Africa is concerned, some others are ahead of Germany so far. So where do you see the role of German Mittelstand? What are the key opportunities in this game for ourselves?
Thank you very much for the questions and to being part of this panel today. As mentioned, I'm from Steinbeis University, but also running in Tübingen an institute called Exportakademie Baden-Württemberg. And the main point is always how to support small and medium-sized companies. And Mr. Bührer has mentioned that as a small and medium-sized companies, the challenges are quite different than for big global players. And to take some keywords you have mentioned, security of investments, cost efficiency, low costs, to be a project developer as a small and medium-sized company, these are the challenges you have to face this. And we have learned in the last years that when we are dealing with international projects, we have to think about what are the interactions between the key stakeholders. And therefore, we have developed a so-called integrated system for renewable energy or green energy, taking into account what is waste to energy, but also what is the linkage to solar and wind, and what is then the linkage to green hydrogen especially. And when we are dealing with this issue, I would say we have to face with three different main stakeholders. That means first, it's industry. Second, it's research, where I'm coming from, and also Mr. Liebing is coming from. And the other point is training and education. And I would say, starting with industry, especially for small and medium-sized companies, there are a lot of possibilities how to bring German technology into the market. The point is, German technology is well known, and also it's demanded also in Africa. The point is how it can be adapted, and how, I would say, this is the keyword, low costs, and how these concepts can be adapted to the local demands in Africa. And this is coming to the second point, research, where I would say we have to bring together industry, we have to bring research centers. Andreas Wetzel is mentioned it with Fraunhofer, for example, how to develop with German small and medium-sized companies concepts which can really adapt it to the local market. First, they have to run sustainable, and on the other hand, they need cost intensive. And in order to bring these technologies into these markets, and also Minister Kahn has mentioned it, the point is skill development. You need qualified people. And therefore, I would say it's necessary also with German competence, how to bring in maybe the dual system for education into Africa to develop the experts, how to develop trainings together, and how to train the people in the African countries. And I would say this is the main approach, how to bring together these two expertises and how to really build up the competences in the African countries, I would say. Overall, when you mention about the opportunities, I would say there are a lot of opportunities there. But what I have learned in a lot of international projects, the main problem and challenge is how to build a bridge between the African and German working styles, and also between the intercultural differences. And this is what I would say is also possible if also small and medium-sized companies, as your company, Mr. Bührer, and maybe you are some of the fewer ones who is dealing with Africa, you have really to deal with African culture and must be open. And this is what I see a lot of small and medium-sized companies still have difficulties to deal with.
Thank you so much, Professor. I think this is the time now to say goodbye to Minister Kahn, who needs to join President Macron and a lot of other African heads of state for the summit that's about to start in Paris now. I think if you take away the message that Germany is going to do the hydrogen business in Africa together with all of our friends, and that we are highly interested to work with African countries, then we can let you go and attend the second summit of this day. It's been an honor that you could join us today, and I'm sure it's not going to be the last time that we spoke about hydrogen. So thanks for giving us the time and the honor, and we'll speak again soon.
Thank you very much, and it was a pleasure listening to all of you. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Thank you, Minister. Staatssekretär Barres, we've heard about H2 Global. That is a concept that has been mentioned a number of times now in the discussion. I believe it's a globally unique concept of supporting generation projects of green hydrogen for supply to Germany. Could you say a few words around what the German government is planning there and how this idea is going to help investors? So I believe we lost him. So let's see if Thomas Barres is going to come back, and he's joining us again now. Thomas Barres, can you hear us?
Now I can hear you again, yes.
Okay. Did you get my question? Sorry.
Yes. No, repeat it, please.
Right. I was asking about H2 Global. I think that's a globally unique concept that is very fit for purpose to support Germans in generating green hydrogen in among others, Africa. Could you say a few words around what the plan is, what the ideas behind that concept, and what the German government wants to do with it?
Sure, Stefan. H2 Global is a double auction mechanism. The idea is to provide long-term guaranteed purchases price for producers of green H2 and its derivatives. In order to do so, auctions will be carried out and long-term purchase agreements concluded with the best bidders. The green H2 or its derivative will then be transported to Germany and sold via auctions. The federal government compensates for a difference between purchase and sale prices. Auctions will be carried out by a yet to be intermediary. These long-term purchase agreements will give projects developers planning security and will encourage investments in green generation and transport infrastructure. Through the opportunity to purchase the imported green H2 and or its derivatives, domestic companies have the chance to shift early to decarbonized production process. H2 Global can thus accelerate the global market ramp up of green hydrogen and its derivatives with an efficient mechanism of subsidizing. H2 Global is a joint project by the German government and the industry. We are currently working on establishing the criteria that the products to be auctioned need to fulfill. For instance, sustainability criteria regarding the electricity, water and land use and working standards. The intermediate to carry out the auctions will be established soon. The first auctions are planned for later this year, I think.
Thank you. First auctions are planned for later this year. That sounds exciting. And I'm sure there's a lot of excitement in the investment community. Dr. Bührer, would you say that with this instrument, we can go and deliver our first products within a few years from now? And what are these products most likely going to be, given that we have still to bridge significant geographical distance to bring product physically from Africa to Germany? So what is your view about this concept?
Thank you very much. I start with the last part of the question. What are the envisioned products? So hydrogen in itself is rather difficult to be transported across large distances, particularly if it requires shipping. And it's rather unlikely to have a pipeline from, Northern Africa, yes, but other countries maybe a bit long. So we expect that we will see products which are currently in use. This is a nice thing about hydrogen. It's so versatile that we can build it into other molecules and can ship it, such as methane, methanol, ammonia, or even synthetic fuels. So these are the first products which we think will be shipped to Germany. They also can be used locally, so they have a double purpose. The construct of H2 Global, well, we think that it's a brilliant idea. It's a very good approach to address security of purchase agreements. The challenge we see as a mid-sized company to enter transport lines of such quantities that they are worthwhile establishing in the beginning will be rather difficult. So it's probably possible for the big players, but for us, it's I think it's a bit difficult because we start off with smaller projects, and for us, a big project then is considered a small project in terms of hydrogen. So let's assume we're talking about electrolyzers in the range of 50, 100 megawatts, which haven't been built yet, but they only run methane, methanols in the several 10,000 tons range, and this doesn't fill a tanker. So this is a challenge in transport. And also what we see is on the financing side, contracts are secured for 10 years. Coming from renewables, where people are used to 15, 20, 25 years now, contract durations. That's a challenge for the smaller companies, for the mid-sized companies to address. It's only 10 years clarity of investment. That can be done together with the banks, but we see that the loans, that the financing will be limited to that period, artificially increasing potential prices for the product.
Right. So I understand you like the concept a lot in general, but there's still a few details to be sorted out. I just got a question from the audience, and maybe I can add this, a very short question, short answer. People are asking, when do you expect the first project to be producing in Africa? Is that still far away, or are we going to see that rather soon? So maybe what is your estimation as a developer working on projects as we speak?
From a technical point of view, I think switching around to hydrogen production, including renewable parks, based on those parks or those elements and developments which are on course already. So deploying parks which have been planned before these general thoughts, the building up of H2 Global, I think 24, 25 could be possible. It will be challenged from technical point of view because the first pilot projects are larger than anything which was built before. I think looking at dedicated projects, at least in some areas and including wind, not only solar, and we think that the combination of both is the best solution. I think that will take beyond 25.
Right. Thank you for that. So I think it's good to see that so many people are working on it now. 24, 25 seems still like not an easy thing to achieve. But I used to say, if it was easy, everybody could do it. And I'm very glad to see that we have such a qualified team of specialists from different sectors, including for today's discussion. So let me ask Nina my earlier question again. From your experience of what you see around the world, what others are doing, other developed nations are doing to push hydrogen generation and hydrogen investment, is there anything that you would recommend us in Germany to add, to do on top?
Stefan, so you saw I tried to successfully dodge the question earlier with such an esteemed panel, but look, let me try and give some of my views about what Germany can do better, but also starting with what Germany has done well. And I think we do need to pause and reflect on that. The first, I would say, is that in building their hydrogen strategy, they looked beyond domestic borders. That's important, not just for Europe. I mean, I worry that European countries are competing for hydrogen development rather than working together, but also in the broader context. And so actually earmarking 2 billion and saying that's going to be put for international partnerships. Now, of course, in phase 2 of the European hydrogen strategy, it does envisage working with the international partners. But we've really seen Germany take that commitment seriously. And Thomas Barres talked about a number of the partnerships that have been developed, leveraging existing partnerships in the renewable space and building in a hydrogen story. And that's resulted in some very real projects. You know, you talked about when are the next projects coming online. Probably Andreas can talk a little bit more about Morocco, but that is scheduled, that huge hydrogen project scheduled for 24-25. So I think, you know, that has to be applauded. This both the looking beyond domestic borders in their own hydrogen strategy, but also proactively reaching out to Africa. Developing a successful project will rely on partnerships. And to the extent that your host government is supporting, nurturing and building those relationships, the ability for the private sector to come in. And that's not just been in hydrogen. I've been working in Africa for 20 years, and probably at the beginning, I've said my mother's German, so at the beginning when I was in Africa, I used to say, well, I see a lot of French, I see a lot of English. Where are the Germans? And that's something that I've really seen change. And you look at things like the Compact with Africa, this engagement with Africa, this idea that there needs to be the exploring of opportunities and the proper development for a multitude of reasons. This isn't just about hydrogen. This is about trying to address poverty concerns, education, diversification of sectors. So there's a lot that Germany is doing well. I'm going to try and give a few ideas of what Germany could be doing more. And some of these might be contentious, but let me throw them out there for the broader debate. One is continue to be a champion for the green agenda in Africa. This hydrogen, if we're going to push green hydrogen, we need to have the renewables to support that. And so we must continue to invest in that sector. But some would say this is, you know, let's talk about the elephant in the room. The green hydrogen is hugely expensive. And we are going to need some real investment, shoring up of technology in order to try and bring those prices down. So many have said, well, should we be excluding blue? You look at Africa, and I travel to certain countries in Africa, and people are relying on heavy fuel diesel generators to power. If we're going to move to something like using some of the huge gas resources that we have in Africa, could we not look at a blue hydrogen story coupled with carbon capture as a means both to grow the industry, test technology, continue to find a route for resources in Africa? So one would be a question mark around whether we are wrong to completely exclude blue hydrogen in the short term, recognizing that we all want to move to green hydrogen as quickly as possible. The second, perhaps to say, don't just think about countries, think about companies. Andreas alluded to this, companies like OCP in Morocco. You look at some of the big South African miners. There are projects, if you can fit it within, not just looking at the supply side, but also the demand side. And I wonder if a number of the projects that Germany is looking at today, it's really about the supply of hydrogen. But I think German businesses, and you have a number, you're not alone in that. And I have to also say a word for a number of the strong French industrial players that are looking at hydrogen very aggressively. But the extent to which you can find the right business partners in Africa to unlock some of those projects. Continue to promote regulatory reform. That's a very important part. And the last one I would say is continue the development of your own hydrogen sector, because people are predicting this is what, an $11 trillion economy by 2050. If we're going to invest in Africa, if it's going to be on the supply side, if it's going to be about generating sustainable green hydrogen, there needs to be an end market. And across Europe, we have, the vast majority of us, ambitious hydrogen strategies in place. But now we really need to move quickly through the implementation phases so that we can really start to test some of those huge projects and try to bring down some of the costs related to that.
Thanks, Nina. I guess we should allow Staatssekretär Barreis to do a few concluding remarks before we finish, and maybe to react to some of these ideas, or even to tell German business on this panel what you expect from us in the next step, now that the German government has delivered something that I believe is quite unique around the world. But before we do that, let me briefly ask Andreas Wenzel a short question about the role of business associations. So how can chambers of commerce, how can Africa Verein and others contribute and support Germans in pushing in that sector?
Exactly, Stefan. That's a very good point, and I would like to add to that what Nina said. You know, partnerships and bringing people together, bringing business on both sides together, and bringing business together with institutionals is a very important point. And therefore, in the framework of the bilateral energy partnership between Germany and Morocco in cooperation with the GIZ, for instance, we at the Chamber of Commerce here in Casablanca, we are considering, and we have already started to kind of like implement an H2 cluster, including German business, Moroccan business, the likes of OCP, for instance, and others, as well as institutionals. And I think Afrika Verein and the German chambers abroad, together we fulfill a very complementary strategy in representing German business interested in Africa in Germany, and reaching out to our African partners and really building concrete and constructive partnerships to engage in future projects. And if we will be able to succeed, I would also add that what Carsten Bührer said, we will see a first pilot plant up and running, be it 2024 or 2025 here in Morocco, in a strong German-Moroccan partnership. Thank you very much, Stefan.
Thanks. Now, before we come to the concluding remarks, let me turn to Professor Lohmüller, who's doing a lot on training, as we just learned. All African partners that I meet always talk about the question of how Germany can support them with training their people and with education on the technology side. So is there anything that you think you could contribute to support German investors in hydrogen?
Yes, thank you for this question. Currently, we are working on a new concept calling establishment of centers of excellence for green hydrogen, or I would say also green technology. And I'm professor at Steinbeis, and Steinbeis has the philosophy the students have to work 100% in projects. Actually, we are working with several industry partners in South Africa, also in the Republic of Congo, in concepts how to support this technology transfer in green energy to these countries by implementing, supporting experts there and supporting them with trainings, experts, and also inputs from Germany. And I would say developing these partnerships together with regional partners could be a possibility to build a bridge between German technology and also technologies which are required in the nations, in the African countries.
Thank you so much. Now with this, let me give the last word to Thomas Barreis, the Deputy Minister of Economic Affairs and Energy of the German government. What next? Is there anything the government still wants to do, and what do you expect from German business and industry? How can we best support the implementation of the strategy that you have developed? I think you need to unmute.
Yes, thanks, Stefan. I think cooperation between policymakers and industry is crucial for the strategy to succeed. I think companies should drive the implementation of the strategy with the government, supporting the efforts of the private sector. The national hydrogen strategy is not just an energy policy strategy, but just as much an industrial policy strategy. German companies such as Siemens, for example, or ThyssenKrupp, MAN, Linde, and Uniper, but also many Mittelstand, SMEs, are world leaders in many segments related to the energy transition and also in hydrogen. The strategy aims to support and enable German companies to further strengthen their position in the global hydrogen market. Therefore, we need, I think, active cooperation. Cooperation between the business sector and the government is very, very important. And also for the investment, I think, the music. Anyway, it is important for us to get a better understanding, I think, of the challenges that companies are facing when investing. Hence, we need to be involved in the planning of projects early and to see where support is needed. So therefore, I think was a good dialogue for us, and I hope we can go together for it. And I think that thanks again, Stefan, for this opportunity. And I think we have very high aims, and until 2050 we want to be neutral decarbonization. So therefore, it's very important to continue this dialogue, hopefully personally next days. And therefore, thanks again for this conference.
I'm sure we will meet in Berlin very soon. Thanks, Thomas Barreis, for joining, for giving us the honor. The music indicates that time's up, so I can only thank everybody for joining us today, for listening in, for your important contributions. Thanks to the sponsors. And do not forget, if there's any specific interest that you have, please let us know through Maleki Group. They'll forward messages so that we can continue discussions and maybe make this the birth moment today of a few successful hydrogen projects between Germany and Africa. With this, we close, and do stay online. The next panel's coming up that's going to cover renewable energy in sub-Saharan Africa's power supply. All the best. Have a good day. See you soon. Bye.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. A great welcome to our distinguished guests in the audience attending today's panel discussion about the role of renewable energy in sub-Saharan Africa's power supply. Renewable energy is definitely not new to Africa, but in the existence of a huge gap in fulfilling existing demand, we believe it is still a very relevant topic. And I would like to thank the organizer, the Maleki Corporate Group, and its sponsors for arranging such topical event. In sub-Saharan Africa, over 600 million people still lack access to electricity today, and many more are connected to unreliable grids. Simultaneously, prices for solar energy and storage have fallen by more than 80% since the early 2000s. To unlock this market potential in terms of unsatisfied demand, it is estimated that investments of more than $65 billion will be required. Great opportunities for equipment suppliers, developers, power plant operators, and service providers. To this end, I am pleased to have a well-diversified panel of practitioners, including the following panel participants. On the one hand side, I'm pleased to have Barton Sasha joining from IB Vogt in Berlin. He's Business Development Manager for Africa. We also have Peter Strum as Chairman of Sun Farming GmbH, who is also based in Berlin in Germany. Mario Ledic, Director of Governmental Affairs of Andritz Hydro GmbH, based in Ravensburg, southern Germany. And I think we are still awaiting for two more of the panelists still to join, and I hope they will make it in time. On the one hand side, Thomas Kessler, partner at Herbert Smith Freehills, here in Frankfurt, also in Germany, and Dr. Daniel Schroth, Acting Director, Renewable Energies from the African Development Bank in Abidjan, who has to cover the longest distance. So I'm all welcoming you, dear panelists, and I would like to turn and start saying good morning, Barton. IB Vogt is one of the largest German solar PV developers, EPC contractors, and operator amongst others in Africa. How does IB Vogt contribute towards closing the huge gap that I was referring to earlier on in the power supply in sub-Saharan Africa?
Great. Thank you, Carsten. Good morning, everybody. And thanks for the organizers for organizing this and giving us the opportunity to diagnose a little bit the situation in the African energy space, especially the renewable space. You said it, IB Vogt is vertically integrated, so we develop brownfield, greenfield power projects in the PV space in sub-Saharan Africa. And to your question, what we're basically doing is that we're multiplying and even tripling our efforts of developing projects on the African continent, focused much on the sub-Saharan space. What also we've been identified in the past and trying to close this gap is the capacity and know-how built in the respective countries where we are, because this has been an impediment in moving parts of development of these projects. And also we've been trying to build capacity within the stakeholder from the public sector to also understand, what are the needs to bank such projects of huge infrastructural importance on the continent. And these are, some of the aspects in a nutshell that IB Vogt is pushing, looking at other possibilities of co-developing solar PV with other existing energy sources, developing new technologies in order to bridge this gap, and all of this on sustainable terms.
Thank you, Barton. I think that's an impressive track record of activities, and we will certainly come back to it as we go through this conversation. Peter, let me turn to yourself. Could you kindly explain Sun Farming's very different approach compared to standard solar farms operators in taking an agrivoltaic approach? How does it work, and what are its key contributions on the African?
Thank you, Carsten. I'm greeting everybody. We started about 18 years ago with we call it a little higher constructions in solar in Germany. So we have several thousand sheep in the north of Germany running on our panels, and a lot of vegetable productions in several kinds of ways in Germany as well. But we started very early, start of 2000 in South Africa to that time, to build up training centers with help of the DG to prove what we can grow under panels in Africa. And that we were very surprised how much we can grow, and that we can do double use and even more use concepts under panels. And that would be a very good connection. We thought 20 years ago nearly to develop in Africa a lot of jobs by education. So we combined us with the GIZ, and we combined us with German chambers and everything, and we are now educating in about 3 training centers in Africa, worldwide in 6. Under panels, the growing of less water use vegetable production, and medical herbs to reduce, we call it the medicine consumption in the country, to become healthy by eating. And we start our, we call it trainings in a big style to educate people in become electricians, special in PV and electromobility. That is the 3 fields we educate in. We are more educator in the meantime as an energy producer. Even we built 600 megawatts of solar, over 600 megawatts of solar, nearly in that way, modified worldwide, main of that in Germany, Poland and Turkey, but it starts now in Madagascar. We did some hectares, and we are developing about 300 hectares in Africa now, to become the biggest, we call it, industrial centers with education background and German Berufsschule systems in a dual system in Africa, if we get the finance for that. That is not so easy to get finance after COVID, so we had a little break the last 2 years. Everybody knows that. And we have to get the right guarantees to stop this, we call it even education against refugees development, and so that is the way we work on. So we try to make our business plan happen and finance 100% at the moment by the energy. So we are a little bit more expensive in getting our feed-in tariffs as others, because we invest about 40% to 50 more. If we don't get subsidies for that, so we have more or less 30% more feed-in tariff we need, or 25 at least, and everybody knows that. And then we have to split our, we call it feed-in tariff sponsors from the government to sites in Africa, from the utility company, with 2/3 and 1/3 to the others, education, labor, and agriculture or food security. So we are combining our activities with our development organizations, because we are mainly financed by DEG KfW based, or the co-founders, and the rest is private equity or is the mezzanine capital we just raised in Mauritius, where we have our holding for Africa. We are running 26 companies in Africa at the moment to develop that, what I just told you, and our headquarter in finance is Mauritius.
Thank you, Peter, for presenting this innovative approach, not just to addressing the energy gap, but addressing probably an even equally important subject, which is employment. And related to employment, of course, the prerequisite is education, but then also contributing to the food security, and thereby taking an even more sustainable approach than just delivering energy on their sustainable objectives that all of you in the renewable sphere are certainly fully endorsing. Let me shift to, again, another business model, one of the oldest in human history, because I think power generation has been based primarily on wind, and then of course on hydro. So Mario, it's my privilege to asking you, how is Andritz Hydro, as one of the largest hydropower equipment suppliers worldwide, delivering hydropower in small-scale hydro as well as in large-scale power plants, What do you contribute on the African continent? What the company provides on the African continent? I look forward to your contribution.
Thanks, Carsten, a lot. And first, hello from my side to the other panelists and, of course, listening audience. I hope to meet you soon again for a real cup of coffee and to discuss about the upcoming times. As time is limited, Carsten, let me come directly to a question. Yeah, it's true. Hydropower is today the main renewable resource in Africa with installed capacity of 38 gigawatt. And therefore, my company, Andritz Hydro, has been active, right now for more than 100 years on the continent with a long history. And we have supplied, of course, our electromechanical equipment in several countries. So for me, it was not easy to talk about references. So what I did is, or what I can show you is the card behind me, which shows a lot of references across the whole continent. To be honest, I think we all agree that the whole world, and especially our neighbor continent, is facing and will face difficult years. But I'm sure that the economic growth, and so from our perspective, also the energy demand will increase soon again. And here, what I think, the access to reliable and affordable electricity will become more and more important again. And of course, hydropower as one of the oldest renewable energy has a high potential. I think in Africa we have more than 400 gigawatt, and we as a company offer a wide range for small, off-grid, medium-sized and large solutions to support this increasing energy demand. And at the end, it will be a green growth. And what we offer is a wide range. It's not only delivering our electromechanical equipment, it's from development, it's trainings what we offer, or a so-called water-to-wire concept.
Thank you, Mario. Again, an example of the long-standing relationships between a German company active in Africa. And we hopefully will have the opportunity to go into some practical examples of what Andritz Hydro has been doing in at least one or two countries, maybe as an example later on. I wanted to have turned now to Daniel Schroth from the African Development Bank, but I think we are facing a practical example of what the shortage of power can actually result in, as he unfortunately is hit by a cover shortage that does not allow him currently to dial in and therefore not be part of this panel yet. I hope we will have the opportunity to asking him the questions that I have prepared later on. So let me turn to Hans Thomas Kessler of Herbert Smith Freehills, who are legal advisor in the renewable energy sector, not only in Africa. And I think one of the key ingredients for renewable energies or for the power sector as a whole is, of course, that you find an environment that is reliable in terms of the regulatory framework, which still seems to be missing or existing at times. And so it would be interesting to hear what, from your company's perspective, are the developments that can be anticipated, and where do you see renewable energies and their legal environment developing towards? Thomas.
Thank you, Carsten. Good morning. I've also had problems to join, but not because of a power shortage, but rather because of normal technical problems in my inability, so apologize for that. Africa, from an energy perspective, is, in my view, an extremely interesting continent and market. If you look at Africa as a continent, we see that this continent has developed dramatically over the last couple of years, driven actually by a few factors. While I share the view that the coming years may be challenging given the pandemic and its repercussions, I'm in general very optimistic as Africa has improved its infrastructure dramatically in many countries on the continent. It has also uplifted the educational levels of its population, especially communication infrastructure has improved. And on top of this, Africa is by now also a place where we see geopolitical ambitions and interests accumulating from Western countries, from Asian countries, from all over the world. And I think the continent is benefiting from this. So overall, I think the continent is in a situation better than at least in my lifetime ever. And energy is, of course, a key factor. And energy is also a key factor because we as mankind face a global challenge. And we will not face this challenge and deal with the challenge if you look at our own countries alone. So that is, I think, also an opportunity for Africa as a whole. The challenges have not really changed. We speak about reliable regulation, about ESG, about governance, of course. We also need to mobilize capital for the continent, and capital is shy with regard to risk. And that's also why it's so important to have ADB here on the panel. State bank, sovereign banks play an important role to actually mobilize private capital and to stabilize investment structures. And I think that is going to be key in the next couple of years, that the public sector steps in, is helping to mobilize the private sector, and that the countries itself, based also on their expertise that have built, that they provide stable investment opportunities, stable investment frameworks on the one hand, and backed by firm and reliable financing structures. If that is going to be achieved, I'm pretty sure that all the positive expectations that many of us share will become reality, and that we will see an increasing inflow of capital onto the African continent.
Thank you, Thomas, for providing this framework of prerequisites that are necessary to see more projects really making it through the entire planning, project preparation, and then implementation. That, of course, also includes legally binding contracts, and then ultimately starting operations so the asset becomes productive. I fully concur with these prerequisites, and while it is very difficult to really find a general one sentence that fits all, given the diversity of Africa, I think we should come back to a couple of examples at a later point on which countries, from your perspective, are the ones that are really taking the lead in terms of activities, and others that are probably lagging behind and should take advantage of opportunities from their neighbors. But let me turn back to Barton in asking, what opportunities does EBFOC see arising to accelerate solar power generation and distribution in sub-Saharan Africa?
Yeah, thanks again, Carsten. Looking at the continent in itself, I think most of us have identified the soft spot of this continent. We've noted, and if you look at the demography of the continent, 1.3 billion people, 40% of them having access to electricity. Electricity growing at 8% on average on the whole continent. And the continent, which is still very much agricultural based, right? So it means that there is still the potential of growth into the transformation into the industrial space, and all of these cannot move without the adequate and reliable supply of energy. If you look at also what the respective governments are beginning to understand, the respective states, to see that the traditional hydro, it's needy, of course, and it's well established on the continent, but you still have those challenges in terms of drought, because of the development, the uncontrolled development, if you want, you're beginning to have issues with water levels on the entire continent. You're even having geopolitical issues when it comes to how do you get this dam structured and where do you get the power downstream. There's a need for cogeneration. There's a need for diversifying the energy sources on the respective continents. And where we see the opportunity as well is that the countries, of course, and most of them have understood that generation is not an issue. It's not the biggest problem to get done. The biggest problem is how do you dispatch this power? So they're looking at how do we extend the transmission lines, and there's quite a lot of them being done. And in a nice way that the continent and sub-Sahara is being segmenting itself to respective power pools. You see the West African part doing a kind of a power pool network with a sub-regional power pool network. The East African doing the same. The South African power pool are doing the same. And all of these initiatives are also gearing towards, increasing the transmission capacity and infrastructure, as well as the distribution infrastructure on the downstream. And these are opportunities that are being offered on the market, where the capacity of generation could be comfortably, dispatched and then utilized on the entire market. And we also see the global environmental concern, the green gas effect, the climate change effects, where Africa is extremely hit by this, unfortunately not being the major cause. And so they are also, that change and shift in thinking to green at their electricity production. And here you see electricity being generated or being promoted out of renewable energy sources. And notwithstanding the high climatic and the conditions that such energies, I'm speaking here of solar PV, where we're most expertise, that potential is enormous. It's unbeatable. And why don't you tap this? And there's that, understanding on the market on the sub-Saharan continent that there is need to use this type of electricity production, to power its economy. And then if you look at also the youth, the demography in terms of the youth population, more than 50% of African continent is under 35. So there's a huge workforce. And this tells you that there is a growing middle class that is coming, and there's going to be demand for all of these, the developmental aspects that you would need in the ICT, in agriculture, in health, in infrastructure. And you cannot do all of these without having sustainable electricity development. So we see with these few cross-section of issues, as I just identified, a huge potential in the market. And then in the technology space, not only pure power, PV solar generation, but the need for these grids to be stabilized, the need for power to be shifted, the need for frequency to be regulated on these networks. You begin to see storage and battery technologies coming up, and there's a huge potential here. And then IB Folk is tapping in all of these potentials as well in terms of technology and in terms of its development approach to be able to take advantage of the immense possibilities and opportunities that are on the market.
Martin, can I just ask a follow-up question? Could you give one or two examples where EB Folk is currently taking advantage of, integrating technology and building projects of the types that you just described?
Exactly. We are having a huge power pipeline, of course, on the continent. Based on your first question, how do we address that gap? So we're talking about 500 megawatts of solar PV power plants in different developmental stages. In the West African, most especially looking at the West African sub-regional power pool, we're now developing close to the end of its developmental phase, PV grid interconnected plus storage. So here would be a huge power plant. For reasons of confidentiality, I may not, be calling it by name, but it's on the West African sub-regional power network, where we'll be developing PV and also a huge battery storage of up to 50 megawatt hour to be able to to do some load shifting, as well as mitigate the cost of investing in the increase of thermal power generation in this country, which has been important to the to that utility as well. And further also in Guinea, that maybe is not a secret here. We're developing a 50 megawatt there on that particular space, which is a PV standalone project. And typically, we're looking at the continent of the clusters, as I just indicated, the West African power pool, the Eastern Central Africa, which is more or less not a power pool, but a little bit interconnected, and the Southern African power pool. And in each of these individual power pools, we have projects that would be ready for construction and COD potentially by 2023.
Thank you, Bart. Thank you, Barton. That was, I think, very helpful to get also a sense of the size of projects that meanwhile get developed in the renewable space, also on a continent like Africa, and that action really is determining development, and it's not just talking about opportunities anymore, but creating reality. Mario, coming back to hydropower. We heard just Martin referring to that the change in climate, the occasionally occurring droughts could be a limiting factor on the hydropower. On the one hand side, your presence, Andritz Hydro's presence is already for 100 years. One could imagine that most of the potential has already been tapped. On the other hand, I recall from previous discussions that if one were just to tap into the Congo River system, and not just about the Inga project, which never really was built to capacity, one could probably cover a huge part of the unmet demand as of today. So let's come back to the hydropower sector and the opportunities existing there. What contributions do you expect Andritz to provide to diversifying the energy mix and to maintaining the momentum that we all agreed on the ESGs, that it has to be a world of renewable energies and not of fossil fuels? So from that perspective, there should be still potential, I hope, on the hydropower side as well.
Yeah, of course, Carsten. And as I said in my first statement, we will face a rapid demand for electricity with new necessary investments in power plants, transmission line, and of course, distribution assets to reach all the people in Africa and several countries. And yes, of course, hydropower is today, as already mentioned, has an installed capacity of 38 gigawatt and a potential of more than 400 gigawatt hours. And what I can show you, Carsten, is just two examples from Andritz Hydro, how hydropower can contribute with their solutions. But first, let me comment to Sasha. Yes, you are right. Of course, all these projects have to be in line with international standards, and I can guarantee you that Andritz Hydro is only working under the standards. So let me just show you on two examples. On the one side, what we see is that, for example, large-scale power plants are needed definitely for example, for the rapid growing mega cities in Africa. And I think one good example is our reference in Angola with the so-called hydropower plant Lauca, where we have delivered our equipment and training out of Ravensburg. The hydropower plant has approximately an outcome of more than 2,000 megawatt. And looking now, it's in operation, and it's essential for the growing capital Luanda. And today, after this hydropower plant started to work, we have nearly no blackouts in this growing capital compared to former times. But on the other side, I also think, especially in the hydro business, multi-purpose hydropower plants, which are including, for example, irrigation and supply of drinking water, will also become more and more important to foster, for example, rural development. Yeah? And here, hopefully, in the second half of this year, we will start with the execution of a project including 4 countries. It's Senegal, Gambia, Guinea, and Guinea-Bissau. And therefore, we have on the one side large-scale projects for mega cities. I think multi-purpose hydropower plants for rural development. And here in this special case, the project called Sambangalu also shows that a regional cooperation of countries in Africa will also get more and more important. But on the other side, what hydropower also can offer is decentralized off-grid solutions with small hydropower plants, which of course in combination, for example, with solar and battery, are definitely a good solution for a rural development, not only in a social aspect, but also the business aspect. And what I can mention here is an example in Kenya with a very liberalized energy market where we have our client, it's the Kenyan Tea Development Agency, KTDA, where we are very successful delivering solutions to our customers. What does it mean at the end? The customer has the possibility for 24 hours energy supply. On the other side, due to the fact that Kenya has a liberalized energy market, he can sell also this energy to other community as they are not near or to the next grid. And I think looking at all these aspects, we have a wide range of solutions which we can offer. And of course, it has to be a sustainable development and fulfilling all these criteria for hydropower plants.
Thank you, Mario, for reassuring us that there is still room for growth on hydropower in addition to solar. And certainly one element we have entirely not covered here in this panel is the potential of wind, which definitely is also to be taken in consideration for the overall energy mix. We have heard it beforehand that regulatory reforms are key to increase growth in a sector that traditionally requires public and private partnerships and a framework that governs this relationship. Thomas, where does Herbert Smith Freehills see the opportunities arising in the renewable energy sector? Where do you see the reforms gradually emerging so that there will be a stronger pipeline of projects emerging, and that also ideally would set a framework that would reduce the project preparation times? You're muted, Thomas.
Thank you. What we are currently seeing, not only in Africa, but also in other countries, is that renewable energy is actually driven by the industrialization in the key sectors. I mean, if you look at Africa, mining, cement, these are all industries that have a huge demand for energy. And if you want to develop Africa further, and if you want to develop those already very strong industries further, these industries will require energy. And that is a big opportunity for the continent and the countries that can actually refer to such industries, energy-intensive industries, because Africa is not in a different situation like many other places around the world. You need to combine energy intensive industries with energy supply, and that is relatively easy if you allow these industries to be off-taker. And as Mario just mentioned, and is already the case in other certain countries, that you can then supply the excess energy into the regional or the national grid. I think that is a big opportunity on the one hand to combine renewable energy with the overall growing industries, traditional industries. And that is something where, in my view, governments should be focusing on. Another point, and sun farming is a good example, but also other solar energy providers and developers are looking at this. Agro photovoltaic, agro solar is also a big opportunity for the continent. It can rather address grassroots developments. It is able to bring energy into the smaller communities, but this is also something that fits nicely, in my view, to the overall infrastructure, social infrastructure of the continent. That is something we should also focus on as a segment, because also in that respect, technology brings technology. If you bring renewable energy technology to a place, you can combine it with bringing, of course, agricultural expertise to a place, and combining two different industries in such a way, in my view, it can provide a big opportunity for the continent in many countries.
Thank you, Thomas. That's a perfect lead into me asking Peter, who has described the benefits of combining power generation and food production previously. So the question to me would be, how does Sun Farming's project pipeline look, and how can these projects get financed? Because as you said, you need higher tariffs, thereby it may not be that appealing for investors just on a grid parity cost comparison basis. So it would be interesting to hear from your side on how well you are able in developing these integrated projects.
Thank you, Carsten. What Thomas just told is right. That is a big market, but it's not so easy to finance. That is very easy to tell you from the first step on. You have to combine both things. We are not expensive. We produce our cell panels in a white label. We produce our under constructions in Germany. We have all our things done. We have over 100 engineers working in the production and in the realization. And our bankers and we call it people who organize the money, they are very good as well and not expensive. So in the full cost calculation, I think we have a very good concept, but it's still not easy to finance. The lowest income, the lowest feed-in tariff we need to start with the agri-photovoltaic in Africa, where we start with, we call it constructions in a 10% technical implementation of this education part, because we are entrepreneur producers. So we produce a lot of people. It's about per megawatt over 15 years, we can produce, when we install our plants, 1,000 people per megawatt in 10 years. That is what we learned now the last 15 years. And just to tell you, because over this entrepreneurship, when we train a guy, 20% of them become their own bosses, entrepreneurs, and we make them to franchisers, and then they multiply them, and then they install their own jobs. So they make so many jobs, and independent studies from the KfW financed told us over our plants in Madagascar, for example, that we can make a plus added value of about 6 till 7 euro cents in the gross economically view. But that don't help us in the first step. We need 8.5 euro cents to start. That's not so much. Everybody can get even plant from us, of my people who are with us in the hydro or in the wind. They can get this, we call it unit from us, between 600,000 and 700,000 euros per megawatt as a ground stock. That is not a problem to finance that. Then they have agro PV from us, and then they can install over the years in their plant as well, because we even deliver to our partners who want to buy from us something over export from Hamburg. We are not just going for ourselves, because the capacity of our production is much higher than the capacity of our investment possibilities. When we can invest 100 till 400 megawatts a year, perhaps with our private, other people can do the same, and big plants need, for example, dual systems. We don't have competitors, we say, because we have the key technologies, and we invest by our own, and we do daily selling energy in Germany, Europe, and all over. But it's still not easy to do that in Africa at the moment, and we have ever to find two wells of income. We have the feed-in tariff. We need, first of all, an understanding of KfW and World Bank and all the institutions around. that if you want to develop Africa, you cannot just look for the cheapest energy price. That is absolutely wrong, because then there are coming some utility companies from Europe or worldwide hedge funds and try to make a deal for 3, 4 cents. Then we can stop that all. Even my colleagues, I think, don't like that. Then we cannot build that what we want. We have no chance to develop anything if we go just over price. And we cannot help Africa after COVID to get jobs or food security, or we stop refugees by the policy of the cheapest price is winning a race. If we stop not that, then we destroy all that what we built up for Africa, and everybody want to come up to Europe. I tell you that 100% in each of the country, West Africa, we have PPAs in Togo, we have PPAs in Burkina Faso, we have that in Madagascar, we have that all over there where people are very, very poor, even in Uganda and in other countries. And I just want to nominate everybody to help us in his own interest as well. If you want to develop something, then you need little higher feed-in tariffs, and do ever combine your energy with the social development program. People who have money can buy energy. People who have no jobs, they have no chance to buy energy. And countries after COVID will be so poor that we have to develop their infrastructure of jobs, entrepreneurs in all cases, even in the techniques. The other guys have the same good techniques as we, just in other fields, and we should combine it. Even for you, Mario, we have a floating solar now. We develop now 60 hectares floating in the near of Aachen in Germany, where for a good cheap price that we can do the daily curve of you if you don't have less water in your dam. That is the climate change helps you a lot, and you can buy it directly from us out of our productions to make your, we call it combi, dual system hybrid plant. That is what I think you know from me from last year. Now we were working very hard on this double use or more use systems. With fish or without fish. You can do it without fish because the dams for drinking water don't allow that with the fish, and then we can go ahead. And even with the wind power from Thomas, we can go, or from Sasha, we can go in partnership with you between your, we call it wind power plants. I have wind power, my own, started in 92. So I have enough wind power experience. So we can combine that very good. The big combiners need some solar as well if the wind is not so intensive, so that we can make hybrid plants very easily, even for desaltinations and job creation systems like we do it. So it's not easy. The message is, tell the World Bank, tell the KfW people, tell the development banks, we need a little bit higher feed-in tariffs, or we need energy and a plant, an idea from the banks for development. That they pay us, we call it a little added value on social impact. We call it the social impact add-on a feed-in tariff. That is what is not so easy for a banker, but it should be an option and opportunities in countries to do that after COVID more than before. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter, for also this not only very illustrative, integrative approach in really combining almost all our speakers on the panel in collaborating more intensively. And I wish also that we have a number of African members in our own audience who are listening to these opportunities that can emerge. And let's also face it, despite the existing poverty still prevailing in a number of African countries, the willingness to pay for electricity, even with small budgets, is there. But as long as simply the opportunity is lacking to having access to such electricity, and this is where I believe that renewable energies can play a very strong role, because they are decentralized. You have them on grid, you have them off grid. And from that perspective, you can also allow almost to build any size of project, meeting even a small demand at the very beginning, and then gradually in a modular way build up capacity. I strongly believe that there is a chance for economically viable projects that the private sector would like to develop. I also took note of your interesting proposal to have a social impact add-on premium, which could somehow be then utilized as an impact fund to support projects of an integrative type of way that Sun Farming is pursuing. It's sad that we could not have our panelist from the African Development Bank joining so that he could contribute a little bit his perspectives of what funding sources, risk mitigation sources, and so forth would be available from the African Development Bank. But I hope that there will be at a future event a possibility to certainly have them as part of a panel to describe this, as well as any other development finance institution that Peter was referring to earlier on, be it KfW, DEG, or any of the other Europeans. Let me turn to Thomas again, and so you are not the finance expert, but from a contractual basis, you're talking to investors and have financiers as part of your contractual relationships. So what, from your perspective, do you think would be the prerequisites for attracting more international capital to come to Africa? Is there anything that you could share from HSF's perspective?
Thank you, Carsten. I would actually like to start with what you just mentioned with regard to changes in the finance world. We observe that banks' finances, whether equity, MES, or senior, are not only facing a changing regulatory framework globally, but also a shift in values and risk perception. And what Peter referred to have a kind of impact premium on the financing and conjunction with financing, I think that is not unrealistic. We see currently a real shift, an enormous development. Sometimes it seems revolutionary. And I can imagine that once we have all realized that climate change is even worse than most of us realize at the moment, and that the impact will be much higher potentially if we don't really take this seriously and start fighting it, combating it. I believe that the financing will take in from a cost perspective and pricing perspective, will take into account such elements increasingly. And so in that respect, I believe that Peter's pleading is actually probably finding an interested audience in the financing industry because they all think in that direction, and elements like impact will play a role. I referred earlier to the established industries like mining and cement and others, hospitality. These industries are also facing enormous pressure from their stakeholders and shareholders. They also face pressure from their finances, and I think there's a combination of willingness to actually include and integrate these elements into the overall financing schemes and costs. And I think they will have to be reflected, and they will be reflected in the past. So the positive elements Peter referred to will be reflected by cheaper financing costs. And if we have a project that is not addressing impact and which is not sustainable, it will be much more expensive and may potentially even put a project at risk. So I believe we need to continue working in that direction. There will be a close cooperation and exchange between the equity side, the investors or sponsors, and the financiers. And of course, development banks play a vital role in that. Just like you, Carsten, you started the discussion in Germany a few years ago about sustainable finance. The banks are those who really need to drive the process. In that respect, they play an enormous role in changing their habits and in changing the cost structure of projects.
Thank you, Thomas. It's an interesting discussions that I see here amongst you panelists, where we are moving away from the pure challenge of providing Africa with more energy to towards a more integrated approach that is impact driven rather than just simply return driven. So it would be interesting to continue seeing how that basic principle can be implemented in the years to come, to see more of the opportunities to materialize. But we have spoken a lot about the potential. We have spoken about the opportunities. I think we should spend our very last few minutes at least briefly on raising also a couple of constraints or concerns that you may be facing in your existing, in developing and implementing your existing projects. And I would like to turn to Mario first to, again, just a brief summary, as we have just 6 minutes left, which I would like to split between you, Mario, and Barton, to have the final words on, what is observable in terms of constraints and how you constructively would say how these could potentially be overcome.
Yes, thanks, Carsten. As you know, in the past years, we have discussed a lot about existing hurdles. And from our perspective, first, I think this was even before COVID, very important is what we need is definitely to simplify procedures for accessing climate relevant finance. On the one side, for African countries, but on the other side, also, of course, for private companies investing in Africa. And this question was, I planned to pass to Dr. Daniel Schroth, but unfortunately, he's not in the discussion. On the other side, what I think we have to support the development of sustainable solutions and just to guarantee a sustainable green energy development in Africa. And I think one idea which I like is to discuss EU-African Green Deal in detail. Because from my perspective, I think Africa will play an important role in the upcoming climate change. And I think it's time to realize that and to start cooperation with financing measures and programs and just to offer our neighbor continent solutions out of Europe. And last but not least, Carsten, out of Germany and the EU, we also can support the companies in different phases of renewable energy projects just to minimize also the risk and to foster private investment is the development phase, of course, just to guarantee sustainable projects, financing, investment, security measures, last but not least, also the ECA coverage and just to guarantee for the German and European countries to stay in the game in the upcoming years.
Thank you, Mario. That's definitely a good theme, or it could have been almost a closing word for this section in determining on how the relationship between Africa and Europe could, again, just build on the momentum that exists in the industry sector in greening and, as we said earlier, providing substantial impact. But let me just give a few more words to Barton to say any closing remarks from his side, if there's any.
Thanks, Carsten. I would definitely not come back to what Peter, Mario, and Thomas have extensively said here in terms of the need for sustainable financing, for projects in Africa. I would look at it from the other side of it. And you can have all this financing. You would have them all, the MES, the senior debt, the conditions that are best suited, but you don't have an enabling environment to plow this financing. And this is where I see the biggest homework that needs to be done would be on the market itself. How do we enable this environment to get ready for these investments? How do the government develop their policies and regulations to be able to meet this kind of, trigger this kind of financing? How do they develop their infrastructure to meet this kind of financing? How do they develop their human capacity? How do they make themselves bankable How do they make themselves attractive to receive this foreign direct investments or to trigger this financing? This is where I see a major issue. And we've been encountering that in several of these countries on the markets, in that generally you do not have an enabling environment in terms of regulation. You don't have, there is a crisscross between the off-taker, who is a commercial B2B partner, who's typically financial statement or bank financing is not creditworthy. It becomes very difficult to have a bank a project with such an off-taker on 20-25 years, typically what we look at. So the question is, how do we empower this? What instruments do we create to make them creditworthy, to be able to receive this investment that we do? I do agree that the need for all of this impact investment, the need for all of this there, I'm convinced that the financing is available. The problem is the quality of the products that are coming from that side. We've touched on the governance. These are things that are also impeding the market and making it difficult to deploy investment. But also the other side is the traditional financing structures where for the fear to offend the banking sector, that bankers tend to be very conservative. They tend not to move with the prevailing situation, and what is done in A is done in B and should be done in C in the same way. Which we have seen is not working on the African continent. Just view the geography and the different types of thinking and the way business is done. Carsten, you understand this better from your formal job, right? We have programs that were ruled by the IFC, scaling solar, which are good. These are good to trigger the market, to create an impact. But the message that has been sent in the end is not a message which is sustainable. So if you look at a lot of these projects, there has not been a follow-up project because the countries tend to live out of their reality. Right. So my plea would more or less to get the downer side, which is the other side of where we have to do business, to be ready for business and to accept this financing and be able to handle this financing. We're doing it on the technical side. We're doing it from the development perspective. Thomas is also doing a good job there, empowering. And these are things that need to be done and at a larger scale to be able to trigger financing. So if this is put in package, then I think Africa would be in the next century a net energy exporter to the rest of the world with renewable energy technologies.
Thank you, Barton. I think we are getting the signal of coming to an end. And I will refrain from trying to summarize this very vivid 1 hour discussion which just passed by instant. And I would like to thank all of you for your contributions, for your thoughts, and also for your ideas presented. I wish you all continued success in working with your colleagues and clients in Africa to making many more projects happening. Thank you all, and I wish you well.
Thanks a lot. Bye.